Hello everyone and welcome to WGBS TV Live, brought to you by SupermanHomepage.com, the number one Superman fan site in the world. My name is Steve Eunice. In this, our January 21st, 2020 show, we're going to be covering a range of topics, including the finale to Crisis on Infinite Earths. We're going to be talking about Superman Doomsday, which we neglected to talk about last week, and the latest Supergirl episode, and so much more. We're also going to be turning to you to take your questions and comments on anything Superman related you would like to talk about. And to let you know how all that works and how you can get involved in tonight's show, let me introduce you to my co-host, Mr. Michael Bailey. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Steve. Now, everybody watching this WGBS Live right now is a fan of Superman. And because of that, we want to hear from you as we're doing the show. And to do that, I screwed all of this up because I don't have my script up in front of me, and I apologize now, and I will turn in my resignation at the end of the show. So basically, the way you can do that is to use Skype. You're going to search for Superman Homepage, send us a message saying that you'd like to chat with us live tonight, and that's pretty much how it works. Usually we do that about halfway through the show, but tonight, I'm telling you right now, we've got so much to talk about because there is actually a good episode of Supergirl this week. So it won't be just us complaining about everything. But normally, about halfway through the show, we take calls. Now, to do that, like I said, you're going to need Skype, but a couple things on that. One, wait for us to call you. Don't just call, because that can screw things up. Also, make sure if you have an external speaker as you're watching us live on YouTube, that you turn that down, because we are on a delay. I've got like 3 up on my screen right now, and because of that, it may produce some sound issues.
Yes, indeed. And if you are tuning in live via YouTube, we ask you to post your comments there, and Michael and I will react to those questions and comments on YouTube as the show continues over the next hour, so get involved. And a thank you to our sponsors and patrons, Douglas Meacham, Tina Murray, and John Patrick Van Pelt. We appreciate your support. And if you want to sponsor the Superman homepage, head to patreon.com/Superman homepage. Well, Mike, we're on opposite sides of the world, and you can tell that by our attire. You're all rugged up in your brand new Snuggie, and I'm sweltering here in the 95 degree. I think we've worked out was temperatures-wise as far as the conversion, 35 here in Australia.
Yeah, ironically, it's 30 here, but in Fahrenheit, so which we figured out was -1, where you would be. Yeah, it's I don't know. You see, the funny thing is that when it gets to be the opposite again, and I'm in the middle of summer and you're in the middle of winter, I don't know if I'd wear that type of shirt. Maybe, you never know. I just got a lot of hair here, so that may not look good on camera.
Yes, well, we've got to push on because we've got a lot of topics to get to tonight.
Yes,
as you mentioned at the top of the show, and first and foremost was the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover finale. We weren't able to kind of talk about it last week because it had just aired there on the East Coast, but yet West Coast people had not seen it yet, and obviously people here in Australia and other places in the world had not been able to check it out yet. So now it's all been aired across pretty much the world. I'm not sure about the UK, but we are in spoiler territory if you haven't watched it. But nevertheless, we'll be talking about it in full now. Episodes 4 and 5. You gave a review of both episodes together as a whole because they aired back to back, and other than maybe a small kind of gap in between, there really wasn't any kind of holdover to kind of delineate one episode from the other. But you gave it a 5 out of 5, loving what they did for the finale.
Yeah, it was really good. They did a couple things that I really liked. One, they managed to kind of still mirror the structure of the original comic. And if you look at the last issues, it was they go to the dawn of time to fight the Anti-Monitor. The Spectre is the one that kind of takes them on the most physically. And then there's kind of an issue where they're sussing out the new world that they live in. And then there's the final issue where the Anti-Monitor comes back because the threat hasn't been defeated yet. On a fan level, wow, that Ezra Miller cameo was a complete and utter shock. I am so surprised that they were able to keep that secret. It wasn't secret after it aired. Oh my God, it was all over Twitter. But when I saw him, I'm like, are they like showing just a picture of it? And then he starts talking to him, and I'm just literally gobsmacked that they were able to pull that off. And that my favorite part of that was how the different, the fringe groups of either the pro-Snyder or the anti-Snyder were kind of talking about how one being in the other kind of tainted everything. And I'm like, did you guys just completely miss the subtext of that scene? It was kind of like, yeah, we're both Flashes. It's okay. That at least that's what I got out of it. And just so many other great moments. I think they wrapped it up very well.
It's interesting because a lot of people were saying it was filmed separately. You could tell it wasn't really done together. But then here you can see there's a photo of them, actually embracing each other. So it's not like it was some kind of trickery or green screen process. They were actually there together in the room, doing it side by side, and I thought it was great. It just kind of added to that element of DC being so enmeshed. Doesn't matter whether you're comic books, TV, movies, or whatever, which I don't think really Marvel does at all. I think hats off to those who were able to pull it off, Mark Guggenheim and the rest of them, Berlanti and whoever else were involved in getting that actually happening. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, and even him mentioning Cyborg at the end was cool. I think the reason why some people might have thought it was filmed separately is because it was in the Speed Force and everything looked different. Mm-hmm. I mean, even though they were in the Star Labs set, it looked like the Flash was green screened. Both Flashes, actually. So I kind of got that, but it was just... I think my favorite part was them comparing costumes and Ezra Miller going, God, that looks so comfortable. Because his costume has just got to be just a pain to wear. So
also the naming, hearing him say the Flash, because I don't think they didn't use the name in Justice League.
No, because he had even though he was like around and had a costume or a uniform, whatever, it was really before he was like the hero of Central City. They kind of hinted at that in Suicide Squad, but the only thing we really saw before that was him out of the costume, outside of the dream sequence that never really went anywhere, but out of the costume helping the convenience store he was at. Yeah. So yeah, I think that is the first time we saw him on screen being called the Flash.
Which is pretty cool that it's the TV universe that helps him come up with a name in the movie universe. I don't know if that will carry through or how that will work in his own upcoming movie, but it was a great scene, and I've got that scene here for you guys to check out. Do I? Maybe not. Thought I might have uploaded.
Do you want to take that chance?
Yeah, we might leave that one there. But moving on with the rest of Crisis, there was a lot of people comparing who were upset because they didn't do the comic book thing as far as it wasn't an adaptation. I mean, and you can't because there are different characters. We're not talking about Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman and the main set of characters. We're talking about Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Batwoman being the main characters here. So therefore, of course, they've got to adapt the story to fit the universe that it's being told in.
Yeah, I mean, when the first poster came out, I remember some people thinking that Superman should have been more front and center, and I love Tyler Hoechlin's Superman as much as anybody else, but this isn't his show yet. They're the stars. And the fact that Batwoman wasn't as big a part of the finale was actually a little disappointing to me. It's like she was just there for the fights. And it's really up to the individual shows at that point to kind of show the differences in the post-crisis world. I've not had a chance to watch this week's Batwoman because, unfortunately, that conflicts with Doctor Who. So I'm going to have that fight it out and watch it, a little later. But it just seems like that's where the major, focusing of that is going to be. So, and to be fair, even though the last episode was part 5 of Crisis on Infinite Earths, it was a Legends of
Yeah.
Tomorrow episode, so it was really supposed to focus more on those characters who we really haven't seen, throughout this, except for Rory, White Canary, and Ray. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, so those complaints, I think, really are being a little bit harsh as far as the comic comparison. The other element of the story was the finale with the Justice League forming, the use of the Super Friends musical theme, and Gleek.
Yeah. It's funny. You would think that after seeing Ezra Miller and Grant Gustin on screen together in their Flash costumes, that would be the last surprise. But no, they pulled Gleek out of there, and I just a friend of mine said that it was like they were pulling on every primordial childhood memory you have of these characters, and it really hit me that afterwards, because I just had this huge. I was like even more so than the fight between the two Supermen and the mention of the fact that Superman 3 is canon, I was wigging out. I was disturbing the dogs. I was just so animated about it, because I was not expecting there ever to be any kind of Justice League in this world, and they didn't call it that. But when he pulled the cloth off the table, and we saw them all sit down, and then you see the thing that says Gleek, and then you hear that driving music. It was just like, oh wow, they really ended this on a high note. So now the crossovers are now more meetings of the Justice League.
Sorry, I was muted there, but yeah. So there we have the Super Friends theme. We have the Hall of Justice, and we've got all the different chairs. So cool to see the different logos there of all the characters, and leaving one for Oliver as well. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, John Patrick Van Pelt asks if they played the John Williams score in one of the episodes. They played it pretty heavily in the
second
part, and there was a hint of it as we went through all the multiverse that still exists.
Which I'll bring up right now while we're talking. Here we go.
In the end.
So there was a bit of a kind of voiceover about all the different crossovers. I think we're talking about when they do the whole multiverse thing.
Yep.
We got here we go. They got the Green Lanterns, Earth 19, Teen Titans, Doom Patrol. Here it is.
And apparently the costume is CGI, or the yellow on the costume is CGI.
Exactly.
Because some people were wondering if they actually made a whole separate costume, and I'm like, probably not.
Yeah, I think they confirmed that it was just the yellow was CGI'd over it, as you said.
So, but it's my favorite part of that was that even though like all of the current CW shows are now folded into the same Earth, they're leaving the possibility open that everything still exists. And what I got from that is that one of the subtext of Crisis in general was to be a celebration of all DC media, no matter which year, no matter which version. I mean, we had the Adam West TV show, we had the 1989 Batman film, and to show all these things out there and hinting at the Green Lantern show they're developing, or maybe that was a shot from I think it was a shot from the movie, but which I was kind of surprised. I'm like, so they're really pushing that. it would have been cool to see something Wonder Woman related. It would have been cool to see something Shazam related. But it's almost at that point is like you're finding the things to pick about. I mean, I'm disappointed that we didn't get a single shirt rep. We had 3 Clark Kents in this thing. I mean, not one, really? And who deserves to have a good shirt rip better than Brandon Routh, who didn't have a single decent one in Superman Returns?
No, they have to CG that one as well.
Yeah, probably. But no, it's just... in terms of delivering on an exciting and emotional story, I think they nailed it. In terms of giving me things I've always wanted to see as a fan of these shows, I think they nailed it. Was everything perfect? If I sit here and start picking the story apart, can I find problems? Yes. I just really don't feel like it at this point because it was just so much fun.
Now, some of the other comments that people had or complaints were around not seeing any wrap-ups to some of the universes that we did see, in particular the Smallville Tom Welling universe. Guggenheim went out on social media, no, I think it was TVLine.com's interview, where he said, look, yeah, Clark and Lois in that universe are alive and well. They're living their happy ending. He's powerless. He's going on with his life the way he intended. So, fear not. They're still somewhere out there.
Yeah, I mean, I just assumed by showing that there was a multiverse out there that all of the Earths we saw still exist. Like they were wiped out, but then they were brought back, which is something the original Crisis didn't do. I mean, the original Crisis, they're like, no, there's one reality, except for that pocket universe.
Doesn't that kind of conflict with what happened in the new Supergirl episode?
Yes and no. Because what I got from the new Supergirl episode is that those Brainiacs were the survivors of the Crisis.
Okay.
So, and this is how I was able to parse it. This is all headcanon, so just take it for what it's worth. Is that even though we saw Earth 96 in the form of Brandon Routh's, doing, the smiling at the camera and flying off, that is not the Earth 96 we saw originally. Because that was destroyed. This is the new version of that.
Right, just like this is a new version of Earth Prime.
Yes. So, those Brainies that we saw, they kept calling him Kor-El, and even spelled that way on IMDb. That's not his name. It's Querl. Whatever. I guess everybody has to be an L on this show. But what I got from that is that they're survivors of the original Crisis, or survivors of the worlds from before the Crisis,
right? Okay.
That were destroyed during
the non-altered
Crisis.
Versions.
Yeah. So I know that's like splitting hairs, like you wouldn't believe, but at the same time, that's what I'm going with. That's my answer.
So, if I'm not mistaken, they realized what was happening with the Crisis and extracted themselves so that they wouldn't be destroyed, but now versions of themselves exist on their own reformed world, so they can't go back to those worlds?
Yeah, or they're outside. Yeah, that's probably it. I mean, to be fair, the bottle episode, the bottle in the bottle episode is an intact Earth from before the Crisis. So it's just one of those things where these types of stories are never going to make 100% sense.
Yeah.
Which is why my reasoning for most of my reasons for this is because comics. This is the type of stuff that happens in comics.
No, I was just it kind of felt to me in the bottle episode of Supergirl, by the way, which we're talking about, which was episode was it 11 of season 5. The whole issue is that these witches and these other people who have come from this, before the Crisis, are stuck here because they can't go back to their own universe because there is only one universe, is the way they kind of played it. And so until the multiverse came back, they would have to just wait and bide their time. But from what we saw at the end of Crisis, it seems like universes do exist. So why can't they go back to some other universe instead of being doppelgangers on this one?
Because they probably don't know about the multiverse yet.
Oh, okay, makes sense. Yeah.
They were told there's only one. They haven't discovered the multiverse. It's like before the second season of Flash, we didn't know there were other realities in this world.
True, very true. So this episode, it's a 10th episode of, I think it is, of season 5 of Supergirl, was the bottle episode. It's kind of confusing because you end up using the word episode more than once when you're talking about it, because it's the bottle episode. And the actress who played the female version of Brainiac 5 is actually Jesse Rath's sister.
Yeah, I thought that was really clever, because she does kind of look like him, but doesn't look like a complete female version of him. I gotta say, Jesse Rath was the standout performer of this episode, because it wasn't just him playing the other versions of Brainiac 5, but the complete transformation he took at the end of the episode, when we got a more comic book accurate version of the character, and not, as I keep calling it, the bedazzled Doc Brown look, that I really wasn't a fan of. I mean, it's funny because normally the whole a character, like breaking up with somebody or pretending to not like somebody so that they can go and actually help out and save the day isn't normally what I really go for. But I really think that not only did this episode kind of pull the season out of the steep dive it was in, but it managed to make me go, no, I'm down with this. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Now, part of this episode also contained the fact that, as far as they're concerned, Leviathan is a bigger threat than Lex Luthor, and so therefore Brainiac needs to work with Lex to stop Leviathan rather than see Lex as the ultimate enemy.
Yeah, I loved when Lena was talking to him about Leviathan, and he's like, what the hell is Leviathan?
Yeah.
Like, he didn't even know. So that, and I think that's why he's so hardcore about finding out about them now, is because it was something that had escaped his notice, and he's supposed to have his, his finger on the pulse of the world. I like that Leviathan is now not silly anymore, because I'm sorry, that whole end part of last season was just like, oh god, this is so goofy. But the fact that, everybody remembers that needs to remember, I guess. I'm glad they didn't have Lena not knowing and then finding out again and feeling betrayed again. We got all that out of the way pretty quick, which is kind of one of the things I like about these shows. It's kind of cool that Lex isn't the hero. Like, sometimes, like when Lex was in the Justice League in the New 52, he was trying to be a hero. He's not trying to be a hero here. He's just playing the angle to his advantage.
And the machinations between him, Lena, and their mother, it's just like, who is siding with who, is helping who, is just like, it's hard to keep track of, but I think that's the point.
Here's what I like about it. The focus of this episode was pretty much on the entire cast. Except for maybe John, who's gotten a lot of screen time lately, so I'm not really all that. And he directed this episode, right?
Yes. So I think it's next week's episode.
Next week?
Yes.
No,
he didn't do this one.
Yeah, that's right. I wrote the review. You would think I would remember that. But everybody got an appropriate amount of screen time. The story was structured to allow for everyone to have a moment, as opposed to the last, the first episodes of this season, where it seemed like they were trying to squeeze people in instead of letting it happen normally. But I'm going to say this because, and I kind of feel bad, there were no social messages here. And that is not to say that is bad that the show tried to do that, but I think it's interesting that the story functions better when they're focusing on the plot instead of trying to figure out a way to bring in the message that they're trying to put across for the season.
So true.
If that
Very
makes
true.
any sense.
No, I 100% agree with you. They're not trying to hammer home some kind of, moral message. They're just telling a good story. I was a little bit confused with the whole, what do you call it? What's that technology they're using that they want Obsidian, where they want to try now to make it so people don't even ever have to leave that world, that they can live there permanently.
Well, here's the thing, and there were 2 hints in this episode. One was a mention of the anti-life equation,
Mm-hmm.
and the other was, at one point, someone says the word apocalypse. Now, we have the closed captioning on, because sometimes Rachel has a hard time hearing, so it's easier for her to see it. And they spelled it the normal way that you spell the word apocalypse.
In the
but
dictionary.
I'm like, no, I think we're going towards something here. And if it's basically at the end of the day, Leviathan somehow leads into the Fourth World characters being brought into the show,
Wow.
That would be extremely awesome. Like, basically, Obsidian, Leviathan is attached to Darkseid, and they're trying to use Obsidian to basically put the anti-life equation into everybody. So that's how they get them. Again, I have no proof of this. This is just my guess about where things are going.
I like it. And, with season 6 having been already announced, Darkseid and Apocalypse and Desaad, somebody of that nature could definitely be the big bad of next season.
And that's your crossover for next year, too, which they don't even have to do as the crossover that they did like this year, where they're going to do Legends. Not that they're going to do Legends, but it's basically the idea that for a week, Darkseid's big plan tries to get rid of the concept of heroes on that world, and we see how it affects each hero individually with only one episode where everyone gets together.
Yes, indeed. Well, we now look ahead to next week, which is part 1 of a 2-part storyline called Back from the Future, part 1. And we see Jeremy Jordan return as Win Shot for, I think it's 3 episodes that he's a part of. And we have the promotional trailer for this episode right here.
My name's Lex Luthor.
That's a weird name.
No weirder than Toy Man.
Wish we knew what he was up to.
Whatever you do, make it splashy.
They're bombs.
So there you have it. Lex Luthor again involved, obviously. Jeremy Jordan returning as Win Shot. Mention of the Toy Man. We see little chimpanzees with bombs. Looking forward to seeing Jeremy Jordan return.
And the fact that he's kind of playing a bad guy goes against what I thought they were going to do with it. But more than anything, I'm so glad Lex is sticking around.
Me too.
I really am. It's like, basically, if you want to fix a season of Supergirl, we now have 2 examples of just add Lex Luthor. It'll go a lot better.
Now, at the end of this recent episode, he mentioned getting help from the future, and that's when I thought automatically about getting Win Shot back. Because he showed the picture of Win, played by Jeremy Jordan, and now we have this Toyman version of Win. Did they get the wrong version? Is this what happened with the Crisis having created a new reality?
What I think, again, this is a total guess, but what I think is going to happen is that somehow him coming back from the future messed with his head. Like, the way he came back was imperfect or something.
Mm-hmm.
And Lex is manipulating him into being the Toy Man.
Could be interesting. Speaking of Jeremy Jordan, I recently saw him, surprisingly, on a Netflix film called American Son, where he played a policeman really interesting role for him. It's actually a pretty good film if you want to check it out. I think it might have been a play at one stage because it's all set in pretty much one room, and it's one of those films where there's so many different angles. It's quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, I've long been of the opinion that as good as Supergirl is, he was just way too talented to just be like the supporting character. Just between his singing voice and the fact that he's got a really versatile range. I mean, the character even shifted from being kind of the meek and mild, friend of Kara to being a pretty forceful character and joining the DEO. I mean, it's just... I'm glad to see that he's coming back for a couple of episodes. This is leading into the 100th episode, right?
True. So
is it when is the... Because they were talking about filming it. What would the 100th episode be?
Good question. You got what, 22 every year?
Yeah.
So 88 would have been the end of season 4.
So it would have been episode 12. This episode.
Yeah. So the 11 is this week, and then the next week will be 12, unless there was maybe one short one year, 21 or something like that. That'll make it the week after that. But yeah, we're getting there. Could be in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to change tact and go into the comic book side of things. And we had been remiss not to talk about Doomsday Clock. I think I said Superman Doomsday at the beginning of the show. Doomsday Clock number 12, the finale of that series, which I know you have some things you want to say about. So we'll take a quick break, play some messages, and then come back on the flip side.
We'll be back in a moment with the exciting climax of today's episode. So stand by.
Look, up in the sky.
It's a bird.
It's a plane. No, it's SupermanHomepage.com, the #1 Superman fan site in the world. SupermanHomepage.com, covering the world of Superman from the 1930s to today. News, reviews, rumors, and reports. SupermanHomepage.com for all your Superman comics, TV shows, movies, cartoons, radio shows, and more. Everything you ever wanted to know about the Man of Steel and more. SupermanHomepage.com.
Thanks, Superman Homepage, for all the support over the years. I really appreciate it.
I'm Matt Balmer, the voice of Superman in Superman Unbound, and this is the Superman Homepage.
Right here on Superman Homepage.
As the airline that flies to more countries than any other, Turkish Airlines is pleased to announce a new destination, Metropolis. A city reborn, rebuilt, and stronger than ever. Proud of its heritage and its heroes.
Well, thanks to LexCorp's substantial contribution, Metropolis is now open for business again.
Come visit the city of tomorrow. Today.
We can't wait to welcome you.
Book your flight now on Turkish Airlines.
And we're back on WGBS TV Live, which that commercial wasn't that long ago. It was obviously there for Batman v Superman. I thought they did a really good job, Turkish Airlines, of those commercials.
Yeah, they were really. At first I was just like, why is there a commercial with Lex Luthor? And then I'm like, oh yeah, they did that whole thing where they actually like had the people from the movie in it looking like a real commercial. So, which, you know, all things being equal, I think that any businessman version of Lex would be in some kind of commercial for a company he owns.
For sure. All right, Doomsday Clock number 12, as I mentioned, was a recent publication that came out just a couple of weeks ago, and it really was a big finale that made a lot of noise as far as social media was concerned. What was your take, Michael?
It ended well. I was satisfied with the ending for a couple different reasons. One, I thought that Johns did a good job of kind of meshing the two worlds and having them work together. But more than anything, it was kind of a reaffirmation of Superman's place in the DC universe, which seems to get lost because Batman is so popular. But my biggest takeaway was everything counts. It's funny because we just had Crisis where, you know, everything counts, including the movie universe apparently. And then just right around that time, you get the comic book version where Jeff Johns is like, yep, there was an Earth 2, and there was a multiverse, and then there was a Crisis, and then there wasn't, and then there was the New 52, and it specifically says it's still out there. So, which I was like, well, that's kind of bold. But for me, the moment... sitting in the break room at work, reading this on my iPad, and I'm going through it. I'm like, that's really cool. Oh, the Justice Society is back. That's really awesome. Oh, I don't recognize any of those Legion characters, but that's really cool that the Legion is back. And then right there at the end, to basically say that Martha and Jonathan are still alive, I mean, that's when I really just wanted to start crying. Because one of my biggest problems with the New 52 was not so much that they killed Martha and Jonathan, but that their influence outside of Grant Morrison's run really wasn't felt. Like, he was more of the stranger in a strange land, the alien living on Earth and feeling separate from the world around him. And to have that come back and that be... And John's basically saying, no, you need them there because it grounds Superman. And then all the hints of the future... But through it all, it's just like basically, no, there's always going to be a Superman. He is always going to be the symbol of hope for this, for these characters. And I was there for that, for lack of a better term.
I think Mike Zumo in the comments says it well when he says Doomsday Clock is an example why you don't start releasing these things until you're nearly done producing. I think this suffered, not in sales, because sales were always up there at the top of what DC were producing, but as far as story was concerned and the impact that it had on the comic book industry as a whole, that I think that fell away to some degree because of the delays and the timing. It kind of feels now that it wasn't as impactful as it probably was meant to be.
Yeah, the question there is, if it had come out when it was supposed to come out, like if it was monthly, and it came out a year to the day of after it started, would that have changed the way and the directions they took the other DC books? Because it seemed to me that right after, when this started getting later and later, that seemed to be when the stuff that had been established in Rebirth really started falling away hardcore. And I'm not saying, well, this is why we got Bendis, but at the same time, would it have been the same, and what would that have done to the Superman books as well? Because when you look at it, it was... How long was it? It was almost a year until they got around to Superman Reborn. So all of that would have been wrapped up around the same time. So I'm wondering what the DC Universe would look like today if everything had come out when it was supposed to.
I guess we'll never know. We just have to continue with what we've got, and just knowing that Jeff Johns has some say over there kind of leads me with some hope, because Jim Lee and Dan Didio don't fill me with a lot of confidence.
No. In fact, the idea that there was a video out there saying that Jim Lee can be the Kevin Feige for the DC world, I'm like, no. I mean, that world is going to look like a lot of Batman. a lot of Batman in his characters.
Indeed. All right. Well, looking. I mean, is there anything else you wanted to add about Doomsday Clock before?
No, I was impressed that I ended up actually liking it in the end, because I was really down on it for a long time.
I think it will read better in trade form.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Zumo made the point that you don't start releasing these things until you're nearly done producing. Lateness is one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yeah, me too.
So I can't agree with him more. But sadly, it's not going to matter. And this story is going to kind of exist as its own little thing in hardcover down the road.
Well, we'll wait and see what people think of it if it gets into that kind of form and more people read it. I mean, a lot of people did read it as it was released, but I think it didn't have the impact, as I said, because of the lateness of issues and the timing. But looking ahead, DC gave us a couple of early looks at upcoming comic books, including the one-shot Superman Villains, which is an oversized issue packed with stories from Bendis, Hauser, Hitch, Perkins, Rucker, and more. And there's one particular story about Lex Luthor and his reaction to Superman revealing, his secret identity to the world. And the couple of pages that they've given us here see, I'm not sure who's laughing, but a lot of laughing, and Lex kind of not dealing with it very well, to the point where he's so angry that he just tears everything to shreds in front of him.
I wonder if he's imagining the laughter, like everyone's laughing at him for not having figured it out.
Good point. That could be the case. So Superman Villains #1 is released February 26th. So it's an early preview of what's coming in that comic book there. We also got an early preview of Superman #20 with Superman 19 out this week, out tomorrow. We've got to look ahead at the next issue. Wrong button there. #20 is a couple of pages. That's the cover without the titles and everything there. But we've got some pencils and inks by the guys, I think Ivan Rice. The pencils there, and some pretty cool artwork. Interesting to see it without the colouring. I think there's a lot to say about the pencils and inking of a lot of the artists that are involved in comic books these days.
Yeah, it's not to diminish the coloring.
No.
Having met Alex Sinclair and hearing his process, it is pretty vital. But it's always kind of cool to see the black and white versions of the art, because Ivan Reis is just a stellar artist just in general. So yeah, just watching the I don't want to say not final product, but the kind of in between from when it was drawn and inked and before it was colored.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see, and it's great that DC provide these details and these pages for us to have a look at. Always love seeing the process, especially if you're an artist or a budding artist that wants to come through the comic book industry. It's always good to see how these pages progress from pencils, inks to colouring, and then the final product. So check out those pages on our website as well. Now, looking even further ahead, April 2020 solicitations came out from DC Comics this past week, and there are a couple of interesting takeaways from that. There's Action Comics 1022 with Superman and Connor Kent having to figure out what's going on with Leviathan.
Yeah, I was like shocked to see the two of them on a cover together. It's just like, and wow, Romita Jr. is not any better at drawing Connor than he is at Superman. So there you go. God, that Superman looks terrible.
Tell me about it. And then we also have Superman #22, which the battle for the United Planet hits a fever pitch as the Galactic Conqueror Mongol beats some of the rulers of the galaxy to death and then heads for Earth.
That sounds about right for a Mongol story.
Yeah. Not much else that you would expect from him, but the art and cover by Ivan Rice and Joe Prado with the variant cover by Brian Hitch. It just goes to show how good an artist compares to JR.
Yeah, I mean, again, I hate saying that because I've liked so much of JR's art in the past, but that Superman, that S being so... to be fair, I'm wearing a Snuggie where the S is like filling up my entire chest. But, you know, where it's so small, it's just like, did we learn nothing from Superman Returns?
And there's a couple of collected editions solicited for even further down the track, including The Adventures of Superman by George Perez, which looks cool.
That is interesting. It's kind of interesting that the main part of that is going to be his post-crisis work. But it's just and the 6 issues he wrote of the New 52, so it's going to be a pretty complete collection. And I'm really hoping that that's the cover they go for, because that was the cover for Action 643 that they turned into a really nice promotional poster as well.
Which was his version of Superman #1 from 1939. Yeah, I don't have that graphic, sorry. But some interesting things to take away from the upcoming April 2020 solicitations for Superman fans. But looking at this week, what we have coming out for Superman fans, here is the releases. We have Batman Superman #6, Aftermath of the Infected, and that is available in a variant cover, an interesting looking cover there. Looks like a watercolor type painting. We have, this is not a Superman comic, but Shazam #10 is an interesting one because it reintroduces Superboy Prime.
Yeah, I saw that. God, Jeff, you just couldn't leave it alone, could you?
Whether or not that's just a way for something to change in the future for people who don't like the current continuity, maybe they're holding out hope that there might be some punching by Superboy Prime going on. I don't know. But we are going to be publishing an article about this tomorrow, so check that out. Also out this week, Superman #19. Cool cover there, but it is The Truth Has Been Revealed, and it will change everything forever. And that is available in a variant cover as well. And then we also have Wonder Twins #11 out this week as well. That is not available in a variant cover. Just one of those ones. Yeah, they don't do variant covers for some of the comics, but this is one of them. Oh, there was something else there. Hang on, what was that? Oh, sorry, I missed one. Hell Arisen. Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen #2 is also out this week, and that is available in a variant cover.
Year of the Villain is still going on? It just seems like they just kind of completely dropped that.
Don't know, it's 2020. That was 2019.
Yeah, well, it started at the, what was that? The Free Comic Book Day. So I guess that makes sense, but it just seems like that was like, yeah, we got this really big event that we're just not going to promote all that much. Yeah. God, DC is so disorganized right now.
Now, as you may have noticed, we did not touch on movie news at the top of the show like we usually start with, because obviously we wanted to get to Crisis, Supergirl, and some of the other stuff. But for fans of Superman the movie living in London, the Prince Charles Cinema will be screening a special screening, if you like, of the film. The information is just kind of playing up on my screen, but I believe it's in March. I'll just find the actual full details for you right now. March 14th, on Saturday, March 14th, starting at 5:25 p.m. Prices are £12.50 for adults, £10 for children. It's the 142-minute theatrical cut of the film, and it's a once-off only screening. So you, if you haven't seen Superman the movie on the big screen, then that's where you can do it, in London.
Oh, that's cool. See, now I don't have to be jealous of it, because I got to see it, last year, or the year before that. God, time is really flying. I'm kind of having trouble with the fact that it's already the 21st of January.
Now, speaking of Superman the movie, there's a new book that's recently been released called Believing a Man Can Fly. I'm just going to bring up the cover for you right now. It's a new book Memories of a Life in Special Effects and Film by Colin Chilvers and Aaron Lamb. Colin Chilvers is the man who won an Academy Award for his work on Superman the movie. He's a special effects artist and director, and he has co-written this book about his life and career in Hollywood. It was released late in 2019, is now available to purchase through our website, and he won an Oscar for his work on the special effects of Superman the movie, and also worked on other Superman projects as well. So this looks like a pretty cool book.
Yeah, I was about to say, look, the cover's really slick. I love the logo, looking like the Superman the movie lettering. But it's rare that we get new books about that movie, so or about that franchise. So it's kind of cool that that came out.
All right, changing again to merchandise. There are a couple of I think you call them statues, figurines, coming out. There's the Superman Call to Action premium format figure that we've mentioned here before is now available to pre-order. You can do that through our website. It measures 9.5 inches tall. Clark Kent sheds his street clothes, running through a metropolis alley as he answers the city's cry for help and becomes the Man of Steel. This is a pretty cool statue. It's available in both a Clark Kent with hat and glasses version and a Superman looking a bit more fierce version as far as the head is concerned. There's the alternate portrait, and it's just really dynamic. There's a lot of movement in this, even though it's obviously a statue coming off the pavement like that. The shirt rip, there you go, Michael. There's your shirt rip for tonight's show.
When I saw this, it was the first time that I really wished I had enough money to get one of these statues, because that is just so slick. I would definitely go for the Clark Kent in the hat and glasses, just because it's really classic. Do we call that the Bendis, non-Bendis version? Depending. Yeah, that's the best humor I can get at the end of the episode. No, it's an incredibly attractive statue.
Pricey, I believe. I haven't got the price in front of me now, but it is scheduled to come out in October this year.
It's like $700, $800.
Yeah.
You can pay it off monthly, apparently.
Installments, okay.
Yeah. So
if you're gonna have to do it, that's one of the figures.
Yeah.
This would be the one you do it on.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
And remember to click through the link on the Superman homepage because we get kickbacks.
I'm just saying, Sideshow. We would talk about it more if you sent us.
We'd review it like an unboxing.
Yeah, I would definitely do an unboxing. I got a webcam. I can make this happen.
Yeah.
What I'm basically saying is we can be bought.
Now another one that's available, which is far smaller, I should say, far less big, far less tall, is this mini Supergirl statue, which is absolutely tiny, and yet it's quite pricey. Also from Sideshow Collectibles. It's limited to 5,000 pieces, expected to arrive in September. Mini Supergirl statue by DC Collectibles. It's 1/10 scale, and you can see it sitting in the hand of the person there, so it's quite small indeed, but it's obviously based on the Michael Turner artwork seen on the cover of Superman Batman number 13, but again, quite pricey for the size.
Is this really a Supergirl statue people were asking for?
I don't know.
I mean, I just think... I don't know why my voice is getting high there. I apologize. No, it's just... it's not that I... Well, actually, no. I had serious problems with this costume. I was creeped out that a bunch of 40-year-olds were designing a suit that looked like this for a teenage girl. But I'm just curious as to why they chose that when that's not... I get that it's supposed to be kind of a classic one, but at the same time, aren't there better Supergirl costumes to do a statue of?
You would think so. I mean, this is like over. This is in Australian dollars, 142 Australian, which has got to be nearly 250 American.
Yeah, something like that. The currency exchange rate is not really equitable between our countries.
No.
But yeah, that's
actually no, it's probably cheaper.
For being so small, that's a really pricey.
No, I think I've got it the wrong way around. It's got to be half that price, so you're probably looking at about $80 American.
Yeah, something like that.
Click on the link, you'll find it.
I'm sure, but still, I mean, like $80 for something that small. I mean, action figures aren't that pricey.
No. So, I mean, it's limited edition, but anyway, statues are expensive, and especially the limited edition ones. So, if you're interested, check that out. And again, get it through the Superman homepage link. But I think that pretty much brings us to the end of tonight's show, unless there was something that you wanted to touch on before we finish off.
No, we talked Crisis to death. I mean, I could sit there and you know, the one thing we didn't touch on. Oh wait, yes, there was something about Crisis that I meant to talk about that I hinted at last week. So they had the casting call, right, for the two male characters.
Yes.
What does she mention at the end of the episode?
Sons.
That the boys are. So, two things to that. One, so both of those characters were supposed to be the Super Sons. And two, why didn't they make one a daughter?
Yeah.
Seems like, you know, there have been stories out there, but now it's not just going to be him raising Jonathan, or them raising Jonathan, but now there's another son. And with the personality differences between the two of them, this could be a really interesting show.
Could be, yes. Two sons. Well, Smallville's Clark had two daughters, so...
Guess that makes up for it.
But, yeah, very interesting. So we will possibly see two Super Sons in the upcoming Superman and Lois TV series. Also, make sure you check out my Superman homepage S-Files video that I recently did on the whole Tyler Hoechlin not my Superman thing.
Yeah, I was about to say I think your title of that video was very appropriate. It's clickbaity in the best sense of it.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. Before we do sign off, I'd like to thank everyone for watching tonight's episode of WGBS TV Live, and once again thank all those who tuned in via the YouTube channel and chat with us there in the comments. And a big thank you to you, my co-host, Mr. Michael Bailey. Thank you, Mike.
Pleasure as always, Steve.
And a huge thank you to our sponsor and patrons, Douglas Meacham, John Patrick Van Pelt, and Tina Murray. Remember, if you want to sponsor the Superman homepage, you can do so for as little as $1. Just head to patreon.com/Superman homepage. The complete 1 hour video of tonight's show will be available on the Superman homepage website and our YouTube channel. So if you tuned in late or missed part of our show, you'll be able to watch it in full at those two locations. But we'll be back next week for our final January edition of WGBS TV, which means we'll have our regular monthly segments. That's on Tuesday, January 8th at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time for another edition of this show. But we look forward to talking to you then. Until then, be sure to check out supermanhomepage.com for all your daily news updates on everything surrounding the Man of Steel. I'm Steve Eunice on behalf of myself and Mr. Michael Bailey. Thanks for watching WGBS TV Live, brought to you by supermanhomepage.com.